A lot of people have been very down on Marvel Snap's newest card, Joaquin Torres, saying that he's not all that good and that he's not a meaningful upgrade to the bounce deck. I had a 60% win rate with my various attempts at making Joaquin Torres good, so let's talk about what actually enabled me to succeed in High Infinite with this card that so many people are sleeping on. Joaquin Torres is a 3/4 with an ongoing ability that multiplies the effects of on-reveal 1-cost cards at his location. Note that this only applies to cards that are 1 cost, as in the number 1 is on the base card. This will not count on 2-cost cards that are discounted by something like Sarah or Elysium. Now, this card seems fairly straightforward, and I think most people agree that it kind of is. This is a card that mostly seems to go in bounce decks, and a lot of people have come to the conclusion that it doesn't necessarily move the needle enough for it to be a worthwhile purchase. I'm not necessarily here to push back on that. I think he's a fine card, but perhaps not the greatest card of all time, but I am going to push back on the idea that he sucks, because this card definitely does not suck. It is quite solid and can generate a wide array of surprising board states that are very difficult for your opponents to deal with. Here's where I ended up with Joaquin Torres. It's not where I started, and we'll cover where I started and how I got here in just a minute. But this is a deck that is a fundamentally pretty fair bounce deck, which is to say it's consistent, it outputs numbers, and Joaquin Torres is a meaningful upgrade to the ceiling of the deck. This is a card that goes tall in a way that you actually need it to go tall. And I think this is crucial too, I don't know or necessarily think that I have gotten around to the best build of the deck full stop. This is still a work in progress, and the multiple builds that I tried had a collective 60% win rate, gaining me 30 cubes. In High Infinite, I think that's a pretty good showing for a card that everyone says is not good. The issues that Joaquin Torres has are pretty straightforward, though. He mostly goes in decks like this. They are bounce decks, and bounce decks have really bad matchups against decks that are able to go over the top of them, because it's difficult for a bounce deck to actually play into a deck that just has more points than it. Your disruption does matter, and you are going to be able to put in multiple kinds of disruption, but it's the kind of disruption that stops them from being able to play cards, and so once they have those cards on the board, there's just not really a lot of stuff you can do about it. As an example, a lot of the ongoing combo Doom stuff that's happening right now, where people are just like playing Doom 2099 early and then a bunch of ongoing Sam stuff alongside it, you kinda can't ever beat an Iron Man. It's not impossible. You're an Iron Patriot deck. Maybe you randomly generate the right thing to do there. But it's very difficult for you to beat an Iron Man in any lane. It's very difficult for you to beat something like a Moonstone Captain America in any lane. These are decks that are just able to go over the top of you. Another deck like that, Mr. Negative. A lot of things go under Mr. Negative, but it is notable here. What this deck does do very well is beat up on sort of mid-rangey decks that actually have those interactive tools. One of the strengths of Bounce has always been its ability to throw priority and dodge interactive tools in a very powerful way. Joaquin Torres makes this happen even more, if you'll pardon the pun, keenly, because you are able to output so much more power when you have access to him. Getting double on reveals on a Rocket Raccoon and then doing it again, that is a 117. Getting double on reveals on a Hood is multiple demons. These are extremely powerful things to do. Silver Sable, excellently strong, will get up to 8 power if you bounce her once after putting her on a Joaquin. What this does is enable Bounce to actually show up as a deck that can contest and can play against other decks in the metagame. I don't think that it makes it a tier 1 deck, but it does do enough to raise Bounce's ceiling that allows it to exist now in a way that it basically has not for a very long time. Traditional Bounce just didn't have the numbers to compete with a lot of what is happening. This deck has enough numbers that it actually can, and Joaquin is important to that. But there are also likely to be better decks to play when it comes time to do a tier list. This was the starting point, and I got it from a player named Crazy, who is on the European server and is generally regarded as a perennial top 50, top 25, top 10, occasionally kind of player. And I really enjoyed playing it, but this was something where I really felt like I ran into matchups that were just non-existent, totally unwinnable. I'm spinning my wheels and they just have more points than me and there's nothing I can do about it and it sucks. And Darkhawk especially was like, this guy is not that great because of the way Joaquin wants you to play. You don't often have a lot of room to actually play a 5-drop. It doesn't happen all the time. But what I noticed was I really did like the idea of having something that can actually be a double-digit unit. And we don't have a lot of room in this deck, right? Like, we kind of want to try maybe Hitmonkey stuff with Black Swan, but maybe we don't necessarily want to try that. I don't know. I was aiming for a more mid-rangey take on bounce, and so what I ended up as was, I'm going to try to drop Darkhawk in order to get a Red Guardian in there, and then I realized the card I was actually looking for was Iron Patriot, which is exactly the card that this deck wants, because it's able to be that sort of early game card that you play, but also provide that scaling big late game threat for cheap. And cheap is kind of the operative word here, right? Like, something that costs 1 or 2 is the kind of thing you can mix into your final turn. Something that costs 5 is not very easy to do when it comes to that. And so you have this deck that I think has some real upside, especially against Arishem. Like, if you really hate Arishem, playing this deck is basically free wins. It is so difficult for them to beat you. I had a game where I played this deck and I beat an Arishem gamer who had 2 Shang-Chis and an Alioth. Like, this is just an extremely free matchup for you. It is going to be an easy one. Now, as far as the rest of how this deck is set up, it is basically the same deck. I just thought I was going to go a different direction, move away from the Darkhawk stuff. One of the interesting holdovers is Cassandra Nova, who I actually just got a lot out of, because we talk about how the deck sort of struggles to go vertical some of the time. Copying a Cassandra Nova on a Nico, even bouncing a Cassandra Nova, it's just like, that's a really good way to get a unit that just like has 10 power. And because you are a deck that has a lot of numbers in it, but not a lot of ability to put a bunch of numbers in 4 board spaces, that can actually be pretty valuable. I'm not positive Cassandra Nova is the right choice, but it's definitely felt right for me with Iron Patriot, even after I cut Korg for Iceman, just to see how that was. The Hood is an excellent card, but also a bit of a headache, a hoodache, if you will. The guy causes some real hand space issues, and managing your hand space is going to be one of the hardest things to do with a deck like this. However, you are a Hood deck, you are a Cassandra Nova deck, which makes you a pretty damn good Iron Patriot deck. This is a deck that has a lot of ability to play a large number of points, but it doesn't necessarily have a lot of ability to go very tall in a given lane. Multiple demons is a big part of that. Like, if you're playing a deck where, like, 3 demons and something else is reasonably going to win you or contest a lane, those are your good matchups. Those are the ones where you actually feel good. And if you're playing a deck where it's like they're just putting 30 power in 2 lanes, then you really struggle. And Hood is a big part of that, because this is a major part of your engine, but it doesn't go tall. It goes like tall-ish and then wide, thanks to Joaquin. Silver Sable is just a great bounce card in general, and a great bounce card in the context of what this deck is trying to do, which is over-index for 1-cost cards that are good. And this is a 1-cost card that is good. You get your Joaquin down, you play like a bounce card, like a Falcon or something like that. So you have 1-drop, 1-drop Falcon after that, and then you have like 1-drop, 1-drop Beast, and then you're suddenly starting to look at like some really, really, really big numbers here. She's also valuable because a lot of people are starting to figure out that you don't really want to contest a Joaquin lane if there's a possibility of getting Rocket Raccooned on you. And so this is a card that you can put in the Joaquin lane that'll still get points in the Joaquin lane, but doesn't need your opponent to play there. You might, I should say. I did run into some people who were just like being smart about that and being like, if you put Joaquin somewhere, I'm just never playing into that. You're never getting Rocket Raccoon procs. I refuse to deal with it, right? You're only getting the 1 double Rocket Raccoon on the final turn of the game. You are not getting double Rocket Raccoons throughout the game. And so this is a card that scales sort of unconditionally. Nothing related to what your opponent is doing, just all you. We talked about verticality, and if you're able to hit 4 Rocket Raccoon procs, you're basically golden as far as verticality goes. That's a 117. It's really good. But ultimately, like, this deck sort of exemplifies what I talked about earlier, where it's like everything in this deck is a rate monster. Everything is so good on rate in terms of the energy expenditure to the reward you get. But because they're all relatively small, despite being amazing on rate, we are punished in terms of the amount of board spaces we have access to. So decks that are able to go extremely tall are out of our reach. This is absolutely a flex slot here. I originally was running Korg. Obviously, when I had Darkhawk, I even tried running this build with Korg instead of Iceman. It felt about the same because we have the additional synergy with a Cassandra Nova that can actually be helpful. And because of Iron Patriot, I don't feel super comfortable cutting Cassandra Nova just yet. And so you end up with a card or a slot for a card that is just like something disruptive so you can have a like shooters shoot kind of chance in your bad matchups where it's just like, I hit Mr. Negative with this, and then I hit it again. Like, just stuff like that, where it's just like, I hit Mr. Negative, then I bounced it, and then I hit Mr. Negative, and also Iron Man. Like, that's kind of the stuff you need to win your bad matchups, and it's like, all right, I guess we're just going to have Iceman Hail Marys. It is not a comprehensive strategy. I would not recommend it. Part of me thinks that, like, the only tech card this deck could actually afford to run is Echo, but we throw Prio all the time, and we keep bouncing stuff, and it's just like, I don't think we can do that either. And so we end up with a relatively techless deck, which leaves us vulnerable to certain strategies. Nico Minoru is a big gainer from this Joaquin Torres card, because she is able to just get to large sizes so much more easily. Having double Forge, for example, is quite powerful. Doubling herself up to 8 is quite powerful. All of that stuff is legitimately good. Like, it's a genuinely strong thing to do. I've even thought about considering a Hawkeye in here in the context of, like, I've talked about how much we need a guy to get bigger. Like, we really need a guy that gets really, really tall. I don't know that I'm desperate enough to run Hawkeye yet, but sometimes Nico Minoru can be that girl, at least. An 8 power card that then gives 4 more power to something else. Just stuff like that, where she's just really good, is notable. Obviously, the other mode that you use on this card a lot of the time is Draw 2. You can also sometimes use Demon Transformations, but I think one mistake I notice people making is using those Demon Transformations too early in the game, because you don't want to really transform any of your stuff other than the hood. And in this deck, you don't even really want to transform the hood because you want to bounce it back and then play it on a Joaquin Torres lane later. And so this card ends up being mostly like stats and then draw 2, and then sometimes you'll find some use for the other stuff. Turning off limbos, for example, moving into locations that you can't otherwise get into. That's really what she's doing, though, but the priority is definitely on the other abilities. This is a bounce deck, and so you're playing this card because it bounces stuff. Toxin's great. Like, having the ability to run 3 cards that all bounce stuff in your bounce deck is pretty crucial, unfortunately. If you plan on playing basically any bounce deck, I strongly advise getting around to getting this card sooner rather than later. This goes for move bounce. This goes for really any bounce archetype. It is very rare to find one that does not benefit from having that third option. Falcon is actually much better with Joaquin than the other bounce cards are, because he is able to remove stuff from Joaquin's lane without removing Joaquin from the board. And this is a bit of an upset, right? Like, that is not typically how this has gone for Sam here. He has typically been the worst bounce card in basically every bounce list, but now he's just legitimately actually about as good as the other ones. This is a good deck for the old version of Sam Wilson. Iron Patriot is here mostly because it was difficult for me to want to go full hog into being a Hitmonkey sort of deck or being a Black Swan sort of deck. It's entirely possible that the correct move with this deck is to cut Iceman and Iron Patriot, or to cut Cassandra Nova and Iron Patriot and run Black Swan and Hitmonkey, and maybe that's just better. My instinct is that I wanted to be able to play to the board more powerfully than that, and I think that Iron Patriot Cassandra Nova allows me to do that. It is entirely possible that the best build of this does make those changes, though, because Hitmonkey can, in some ways, help to solve our problem with verticality. It's just, you know, a little bit iffy if you aren't actually Black Swanning, because then you're just playing one drop, Hitmonkey, and it's like, okay, that's not solving verticality at all. That's a 3/9, which is cool, but we can do that. Agent Venom is still a very strong card, but you should note that you don't need to over-index for Agent Venom here because your bounce lines with Joaquin are so strong, and because you run 3 bounce cards, you will often be in situations where you have to choose between playing this guy and, like, getting a bunch of repeated bounce triggers. And usually, it's gonna be better to get a bunch of repeated bounce triggers. Like, you can look in the deck and be like, how much value am I getting from this guy if I draw, like, 2 or 3 cards and play all of them, versus how much value am I getting from doing my bounce triggers? And usually, the bounce triggers end up coming out on top, as long as you can sort of map out what it's actually gonna end up looking like. Not that this card is bad, necessarily. It's definitely good. I like having a 2/5. I like all the other stuff it does. But it's definitely, I won't say superfluous, but close to it. She's a big girl that you can copy and bounce and make bigger. I've talked about the issues going vertical. This is a card that allows you to go even more vertical. She's also excellent at being an Iron Patriot follow-up. You have multiple great ways to win Iron Patriot lanes, whether they be Iron Patriot into a Rocket Raccoon and an Agent Venom, or Iron Patriot into a Rocket Raccoon and a Demon, Iron Patriot into this. All sorts of stuff that is just, like, very good at actually making Iron Patriot happen. And I think that's an edge I want to keep right now. But again, I can totally see this deck becoming a Hitmonkey deck. I just don't think it's good enough when we don't have Black Swan always available. So, Joaquin. I don't necessarily think he's going to be worth purchasing per se. I do think he has made me play a deck like this successfully for the first time in several months. But a lot of that is metagame contextual. There are a lot of good matchups for a bounce deck right now. Basically, every sort of middling Sam Wilson deck is going to be the kind of thing that you're going to be able to go over the top of unless they're playing, like, Iron Man type stuff. You have a good matchup against stuff like that. You are able to just outpower them pretty reasonably. I think the same applies to Arishem a lot of the time, where it's just like, if you're doing what you're doing, you're going to have better numbers than them over the course of the game most of the time you play them. The problem is the bad matchups are genuinely, truly, abysmally bad. Where if you just run into someone who's playing like Doom 2099 Spectrum even, there's a pretty decent chance you will not be able to get to like 26 power in 2 lanes. That's extremely reasonable, and they're just able to beat you like that a decent amount of the time. It's not a great situation for the deck overall, but it does mean that there are good matchups and bad matchups, and they're very clearly delineated, which to me means I think this deck can exist, but is not going to be like, wow, that's a metagame staple. It's going to be the kind of thing where it's like, if the meta is right, you can bring him out, whip him out, and then you'll be able to see from there if there's longevity in it. I do think that if you ever plan on playing traditional bounce, this is going to be a pretty important card in it. I don't know if this kind of traditional bounce is going to stick around, but it has felt like the best kind of traditional bounce to me. Your bounce deck, Beast, is phenomenal. There's really nothing else to say about this one. All right, y'all. Thank you so much for watching that video. We're about to jump into some gameplay with the various decks that so you can sort of see the metamorphosis happen, maybe. Anyway, I have been KM Best, and I know you're probably wondering what the hell was up with that mask you were wearing at the beginning of the video, KM. Well, it is paying off a long-held debt. That is a sub-goal redemption from like 3 months ago that had been sitting unable to get to me. They sent this shirt right here. They sent it to me. It did not ship. And then they sent me another one, and it got here today. And so basically, I've been waiting for months to get this cosplay to actually happen. Long story short, huge shout out to my fans, my subscribers on Twitch, who supported me to enable me to look this stupid in front of you. Thank you so much. Enjoy the gameplay. Other video with Butt, learned a lot. I'm glad. Had to stop and tell Prodigy thanks for the gift sub, much appreciated. Fortify! Cast Nova diff? Oh, disgusting! Yeah, I mean, it still has 19 power, dude. So my take is they'll try to win the left lane here, and then we'll just win on power. Nice. Would you believe I actually played around the second Shang-Chi off the Time Theater? They had Shang-Chi, Eliath Shang-Chi. Oh. Painful. I'll stay. I'm fine with that. Like, you can be ahead on energy and me, and I cannot care. Probably can't be fine with an Iron Patriot, but, you know. We'll see. Really filling up. I don't get it. I guess I'm gonna die to whatever their deck is, though. Oh god, it's mask time. Oh, that's painful. So I assume they're gonna play, like, Killmonger here or some shit. Okay. So... I don't know, we might get onslaughted or something. Fuck it, let's play. $39. I don't know if we win. So this is a bunch. And then this is another bunch. And then this is an additional +8. I think we are going to win. Oh my god, ongoing effects are doubled. Oh, we win by 1,000,000. Oh, we win by 1,000,000. Oh my god. We win by, like, the largest number of all time. Oh. I forgot Joaquin was ongoing. Jesus. People snipe him. Frou-frou ass. That's the subtext there. Valentina. Some people legit do love it. Galactus in a smoking jacket is funny. It's true, I suppose. Agent Coulson. Alright, I don't know what's happening, but I'm freaked out by it. Well, there goes my walk. Do I have to play around a Killmonger here? Is this like a play around a Killmonger angle here? It is a play around a Killmonger angle. Let's fucking go. That's nice for me. Do they have Invisible Woman? Kind of the only worry now. Are we gonna play around Killmonger enough to play around Invisible Woman too? I don't know. Okay, we're good. Did not have Invisible Woman Killmonger. Did have Black Panther from Agent Coulson or something. Okay. Did not have Killmonger. Did have fucking 10 power for that guy. I think I am generally in favor of not having priority, putting stuff on the left, toxining it up, having a guy there. This is probably broken, right? Ugh. Is Sage not fitting in this list? Sage might fit in this list. Did they use this? I have no idea if they used Black Swan last turn. If they did, that'd be a tip-off that I need to play around a Nico thing. But I don't think I need to, necessarily. Do I need to play around a Nico Kaboom Boom? Ha! Baited. They need to play around a Nico Kaboom Boom. They have to do that. Walk! Joaquin Torres! That's just a tough spot. I don't envy them that spot. It's like a very impossible spot to actually do something about. That's just, yeah. Like, when they didn't activate Black Swan, the reason I put the snipe shield up was so they wouldn't be able to if they were sniping. Okay. Jesus, fuck. This seems good. I don't know, I could lose. They probably have 2 She-Hulks, right? So it's like 2 She-Hulks, some Hitmonkeys, some stuff, some guys, some dudes and some stuff and some dudes. Love some dudes. Big fan of dudes. Look at this. What's better than this? Guys being dudes. They just snapped me back. Alright, I mean, let's see what they got. I'm losing 8 here, I assume. Not losing 8, buddy. They're donating 8, bro. An 8 donator. An 8 donator. Holy fucking shit. That play wins absolutely nowhere. Literally, it never wins the game. There is not a permutation of those cards that wins them that, and they snapped me. I was like, I'm pretty sure, dog. I don't know if we're allowed to have a card like that. Get that the fuck out of here. Iron Man? Maybe, but that's still like a really big guy, you know? I do like that I get to just chuck that shit into Quantum Tunnel at some point. I like making their Quantum Tunnel plays worse. I don't like that they're probably a fucking Ravana deck. We're just going to keep holding Nico looking for the thing that goes boom boom on Limbo. Because it's like, we're still going to lose to gore shit a lot of the time here. That's hilarious. That was not good for them at all now. Couple of options here. We're waiting for Nico Boom Boom, first of all. Okay, we got the Nico Boom Boom. Problem is we can't win another lane. Try this. Be careful of the ninja. It's a 3-power ninja. It's fine. And then this is just so clearly Rocket Raccoon, yes? Oh, shit. Put another rock in their deck. Blow up a Limbo. Okay. Alright, so what are you pulling? Please don't pull fucking Sage, bro. That's a rock, baby! Let's go. We beat a gore with the fucking bounce deck. We beat a gore. Let's go, baby. What? Why are you Scarlet Spider? Very old cosplay goal that has been in the mail for an extensive period of time. I think I'm dead. Took the wrong approach this game. Okay, this is like a potential winnable game now. Just on infinitely scaling casses. I like the video about butt. Everyone loves butt. It kind of depends on how big the thing they're able to make on Krakoa is and how early these casses start mattering in terms of subtracting points from their shit. Krakoa being left is good, but it does mean they can, like, cloning vats something enormous. I'm gonna try it and see if this works. I don't think this is a good stay, but it is something that's important to learn for the deck. Because they got 6 there, it didn't move. What are they cloning in the middle? Juggernaut? Okay. That's fine. Weird snap, but okay. Frigga, a 7-power Aranya? I mean, that's sick as fuck, dog. You think they'll jug here again? I would. I would jug and then move it over to here. Actually, maybe I wouldn't. Who the hell knows? Yeah. Yeah, I was never going in for that lane. I always had to fill up the middle so that I wasn't vulnerable to Juggernaut wherever they played it. I like your Darkhawk. Thank you. Anyway, 24 power Cassie Nova. Pretty fucking good.